The night Ava Brooks stopped being Ethan Whitmore's wife, he did not raise his voice, did not slam a door, did not even look ashamed. He simply stood beneath the soft gold light of their Manhattan penthouse, one hand resting on the polished brass handle of the master bedroom, and said, "Ava, sleep in the guest room tonight." For 3 seconds, the whole world became quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Not the kind of quiet that settles over Central Park after midnight or falls across a church before a prayer. This was the kind of quiet that comes after glass cracks, before anyone is brave enough to admit it is broken. Ava stood in the hallway wearing the ivory silk dress she had chosen for their anniversary dinner, the one Ethan used to say made her look like moonlight against mahogany. Her deep brown skin glowed under the chandelier, her wedding ring catching a cold flash of light as her fingers tightened around the strap of her small black clutch. Behind Ethan, through the half-open bedroom door, Claire Ashford sat on the edge of Ava's bed with a cashmere blanket over her shoulders and a white rose pinned to the lapel of her pale blue coat. Claire looked fragile in the way wealthy women were often allowed to look fragile, as if the world owed them softness simply for appearing breakable. Ava looked at the bed. Her bed. The bed where she had folded Ethan's shirts when he came home exhausted from board meetings. The bed where she had prayed beside him when his father died. The bed where she had once whispered business ideas into the darkness while he listened, kissed her forehead, and promised they would build everything together. Now another woman sat there, quiet and comfortable, while Ava was being asked to become a guest in her own home. She had a difficult evening. Ethan said, his voice calm, expensive, practiced. "It's just one night. Just one night." Ava almost smiled, because that was how men like Ethan destroyed women like her. Not with storms. With small sentences. With reasonable tones. With betrayals dressed as inconvenience. Rain tapped against the floor-to-ceiling windows, turning the city below into a blur of silver and red. 30 stories beneath them. Taxis moved through Madison Avenue like sparks in the dark. Ava could smell Ethan's cedarwood cologne, Claire's soft floral perfume, and the faint trace of the dinner that had gone cold on the dining table. Prime rib, roasted asparagus, 2 untouched glasses of wine. An anniversary meal waiting for a marriage that had already left the room. The guest room, Ava repeated. Her voice did not shake. That was the part Ethan should have feared. He exhaled as if she were making this harder than necessary. "Please don't turn this into something dramatic." Ava looked at him then, truly looked at him, at the man the world called brilliant, generous, untouchable. Ethan Whitmore, billionaire hotel king, white heir to an empire built on marble lobbies and inherited confidence. Her husband, the man who could command 1,000 employees but could not defend his wife from one woman sitting on her pillow. Ava nodded once, not because she agreed, because something inside her had gone still and clear. She turned away from the master bedroom and walked down the hall, each step softer than the last, her heels sinking into the cream runner she had chosen herself 2 years ago. At the guest room door, she paused with her hand on the knob. She did not cry. Not there. Not where Claire could hear victory through the wall. Instead, Ava opened the door, stepped into the dark, and understood with painful grace that Ethan had not sent her to another room. He had shown her where she stood in his life. And by morning, she would show him that no woman with dignity stays where love has made her a stranger. The guest room had never been meant for grief. Ava had designed it for visiting cousins, tired friends, and Ethan's business partners who stayed too late after charity dinners. A soft gray room with linen curtains, a queen-size bed, and a framed photograph of the Brooklyn Bridge at sunrise. She had chosen every detail with care because that was what Ava did. She turned empty spaces into places where people could breathe. But that night, standing in the middle of that careful little room with her ivory dress still brushing her knees, she realized she had spent 3 years building comfort for everyone except herself. The bed smelled like lavender detergent, not memories. The nightstand held no book she had left half-read, no glass of water Ethan had brought her, no tiny evidence of a shared life. It was clean, elegant, and impersonal, like a hotel suite, like a place someone passed through. Ava placed her clutch on the dresser and slowly removed her wedding ring. She did not throw it. She did not curse his name. She only held it in her palm and watched the diamond catch the blue light from the city outside. Once, that ring had felt like a promise. Tonight, it looked like proof. 3 years earlier, before the magazine covers, before Whitmore Global became the crown jewel of luxury hospitality, before Ethan learned how easy it was to accept applause for work he had not done alone, Ava Brooks had been the woman behind the first miracle. The old Whitmore Hotel on Fifth Avenue had been failing then, its lobby too cold, its suites too dated, its reputation slowly sinking beneath bad reviews and boardroom panic. Ethan had inherited the property from his father with a legacy too heavy for his 35-year-old shoulders. He had money, charm, and a last name that opened doors, but he did not understand warmth. Not the kind guests remembered. Not the kind that made strangers feel they had stepped into a life better than their own. Ava had understood it immediately. She was not famous then, not yet buried beneath the role of Mrs. Whitmore. She was Ava Brooks from Brooklyn, daughter of a school secretary and a retired transit mechanic, a black woman who had earned every room she entered twice over and apologized for none of it. She had studied interior architecture in Chicago, worked her way through internships where people confused her for assistants, and built a portfolio full of spaces that felt alive. When Ethan first met her at a design charity auction in Soho, she had been standing alone beside a model of a community arts center, explaining to a donor why beauty should never belong only to people who could afford it. Ethan had watched her speak with a kind of stunned silence. Later, he told her that was the moment he fell in love. Ava used to believe him. During their first year together, he would bring her coffee at 2 in the morning while she spread blueprints across his apartment floor. He would sit beside her barefoot, tie loosened, listening as she explained sight lines, lighting temperature, acoustics, and the quiet psychology of color. "You see things I miss," he had whispered once, his hand resting over hers on a sketch of the hotel lobby. "That is why we work." And they had worked. Ava softened the marble with walnut wood, replaced cold white lighting with amber warmth, turned the presidential suite from a museum of wealth into a sanctuary of calm. She designed the rain garden on the rooftop, the brass archways in the lobby, the library lounge that later became the most photographed corner in Manhattan hospitality magazines. When the hotel reopened, critics called Ethan a visionary. Investors called him the future of luxury travel. His mother called it the Whitmore bloodline rising again. Ava stood beside him at the launch party in a navy dress, smiling while cameras cropped her name out of the story. At first, she told herself it did not matter. Love was not a press release. Marriage was not a byline. But small erasures have a way of becoming architecture. One interview became 10. One forgotten thank you became a pattern. Soon, the world knew Ethan Whitmore as the man who saved a hotel empire, and Ava became the graceful wife in the background, praised for her beauty, her manners, her smile, her ability to stand quietly beside power without asking for any of her own. She had let it happen because she loved him, because he came home tired and kissed her forehead, because he still called her his miracle in private, even while letting the world believe he had created everything alone. But now, in the guest room, with Claire Ashford sleeping in the room Ava had designed, on the bed Ava had chosen, beneath the ceiling Ava had painted a soft warm white, because Ethan hated waking up to harsh light. The truth finally arrived without mercy. She had not only lost a room, she had lost the story of her own life. Outside, the rain slowed against the windows. Ava sat on the edge of the untouched bed and looked down at the ring in her hand. The diamond did not sparkle now. It stared back. By sunrise, Ethan would still believe he had asked for one night of patience. But Ava knew better. He had spent years asking her to disappear beautifully. And tonight, at last, she had seen herself vanish. Morning arrived without kindness. It slipped through the guest room curtains in pale silver strips, touching the carpet, the dresser, the untouched pillow beside Ava, and finally the ring still resting in her open palm. She had not slept. She had listened to the penthouse breathe around her, to the elevator humming beyond the private foyer, to the low murmur of Manhattan waking 30 floors below, to the silence behind the master bedroom door. Around 6:15, she stood, smoothed the wrinkles from her ivory dress, and walked barefoot into the hallway. The penthouse looked exactly as it always had, which somehow made everything worse. The cream runner stretched clean and perfect beneath her feet. The framed black and white photographs of old New York lined the walls. The chandelier above the living room still glowed on its dimmer, spilling gold across Italian marble, and the glass coffee table where last night's anniversary candles had burned down to small pools of wax. Nothing had changed. Everything had. Ava moved toward the master bedroom with the calm of a woman entering a house after a storm to count what was left. The door was open now. Ethan was not inside. Claire was not inside. But their absence had weight. The bed had been made too neatly, the kind of neatness that announced guilt by trying too hard to look innocent. Fresh white sheets tucked with hotel precision. Pillows aligned like evidence. On the left side, Ava's side, a single white rose lay across the pillow. Its stem had been trimmed short, its petals soft and expensive, its meaning unmistakable. Claire Ashford had worn white roses since boarding school, or so Ethan's mother once said with affection at a Christmas dinner where Ava had been corrected for using the wrong dessert fork. Ava picked up the rose between two fingers. It was cold. For a moment, she could see Claire as she had appeared the first day she returned to New York, stepping into the Whitmore Global lobby in a camel coat and pearl earrings, smiling as if the building had been waiting for her. Claire was the kind of woman society recognized before she introduced herself. Ashford money. East Coast polish. A family name whispered through museums, private schools, and charity boards. She knew which hand to place on which shoulder in photographs. She knew how to make cruelty sound like concern. She knew how to stand close to Ethan without looking like she had crossed a line. At first, Ava had tried to be generous. Claire had just come back from Paris after a failed engagement, Ethan had explained. She was fragile. She needed old friends. She understood the pressure of his world. That sentence had remained in Ava's chest like a splinter. His world. As if Ava had been living beside it, not inside it. It started with lunch meetings that ran long. Then late calls Ethan took in the study with the door half closed. Claire began appearing at charity events on his arm when Ava was told the evening would be all business. She sent Ethan rare architecture books, handwritten notes on thick cream paper, and once, a framed photograph of them at 17, laughing beside a sailboat in Newport. Ava had found it on Ethan's desk, placed carefully where he could see it while signing documents. When she asked about it, he smiled with that tired patience men use when they have already decided a woman's instincts are inconvenient. She is part of my past, Ava. Do not make her your enemy. But Ava had never needed an enemy. She had needed a husband who understood the difference between kindness and invitation. Now the master bedroom smelled faintly of fresh linen and Claire's gardenia perfume. Ava set the rose on the nightstand and opened the top drawer where she kept her grandmother's pearl earrings, a small velvet prayer book, and the folded napkin from the restaurant where Ethan had proposed. Everything was still there, arranged exactly as she had left it. That was the cruelty of it. Her life had not been removed. It had been stepped around. From the kitchen came the sound of a cabinet closing. Ethan appeared moments later in a white dress shirt, sleeves rolled to his forearms, his dark blonde hair damp from the shower. He stopped when he saw her standing beside the bed. For the first time since last night, something uncertain crossed his face. "You are up early," he said. Ava looked at the white rose, then back at him. "Where is Claire?" His jaw tightened slightly. "She left before sunrise. Her driver came for her." Of course. Women like Claire did not stay long enough to face the rooms they disturbed. Ava nodded, her expression composed. Did she sleep well? Ethan stared at her as if searching for sarcasm, but Ava gave him none. Only calm. That made the question heavier. "Ava, nothing happened." The words landed clean and useless. She had expected them. Men always thought betrayal had to be proven by something dramatic. A photograph. A confession. A scandal large enough for strangers to understand. They never counted the smaller crimes. The chair pulled out for another woman. The wife left standing. The family jokes left uncorrected. The bedroom offered as comfort while marriage was sent down the hall. Ava walked to the vanity and picked up her earrings, sliding them into her ears with steady fingers. In the mirror, she saw Ethan behind her, tall and polished, and already impatient with the consequences of his own choices. "I never asked whether something happened," she said quietly. "I asked where she was." Ethan exhaled, rubbing the bridge of his nose. "You are turning a difficult night into a trial." Ava met his eyes in the mirror. "No, Ethan. I am finally allowing the evidence to speak." He said her name then, softer, almost warning, but she was already past the place where softness could reach her. She picked up the white rose, carried it to the small silver trash bin beside the vanity, and let it fall. It made no sound. That silence pleased her. Some endings did not deserve a crash. Some deserved only the dignity of being discarded. By 7:30 that evening, Ava understood that Eleanor Whitmore had not invited her to dinner for peace. She had invited her for positioning. The Whitmore estate in Greenwich sat behind iron gates and 200 yards of flawless lawn, its white columns glowing beneath the soft amber of exterior lanterns. Inside, the dining room looked like a museum pretending to be a home. Silver candlesticks, oil portraits, crystal glasses lined with military precision, and a table long enough to make intimacy impossible. Ava arrived in a black dress with a high neckline and pearl earrings that had belonged to her grandmother. She chose the pearls on purpose, not because they were expensive, they were not, but because her grandmother had worn them to church every Sunday after cleaning offices all week, and there was a kind of dignity in them no family fortune could purchase. Ethan walked beside her, one hand at the small of her back, performing unity for the household staff waiting near the archway. The gesture might have warmed her once. That night, it felt like stage direction. Eleanor Whitmore stood at the head of the room in winter white silk, her silver hair swept into a perfect twist, her smile polished enough to cut glass without leaving fingerprints. "Ava, darling," she said, offering both cheeks to the air near Ava's face. "I am so glad you decided to come. Family misunderstandings are best handled privately." Ava looked past her shoulder and saw Claire already seated on Ethan's right, wearing pale green and another white rose, this one pinned just above her heart. The place card beside Ethan's left hand did not say Ava Whitmore. It said Mrs. Brooks Whitmore and had been set 3 seats away, near an elderly cousin who spent most of dinner mistaking people's names. Ava paused for half a breath. Then she sat exactly where they had placed her. There was power, she had learned, in letting people reveal the room before you rearranged it. Dinner unfolded in layers of polished cruelty. The first course was butternut squash soup served in porcelain bowls from France. Eleanor spoke about charity boards, museum renovations, and the importance of preserving family legacy. Claire laughed softly at Ethan's comments, sometimes touching his sleeve as if remembering she had the right. Across the table, Ethan's uncle Richard raised a glass and praised Claire's return to New York, calling it a blessing for the old circle. No one asked Ava about her work. No one asked whether she had eaten. When Eleanor finally turned toward her, it was with the expression of someone opening a drawer she knew would be empty. "Ava, dear, you must admit this world can be difficult to adjust to when one comes from a very different background." The table quieted with the eagerness of people pretending not to listen. Ava rested her spoon beside her bowl. "Different does not mean lesser, Eleanor." A small smile touched Claire's mouth and vanished. Ethan shifted in his chair. His mother tilted her head. "Of course not. I only meant that certain traditions require a lifetime of familiarity. Claire understands them because she grew up among them." "How fortunate for Claire," Ava said. Her voice remained gentle. That made the words travel farther. Ethan gave her a look that asked her not to embarrass him. Ava recognized it immediately. It was the same look he had given her last winter when a society columnist mispronounced her maiden name, and he laughed along to keep the conversation light. The same look from the museum gala when Eleanor introduced her as Ethan's charming wife and nothing more, while standing beneath the brass archway Ava had designed for the Whitmore flagship hotel. A look that said, "Be graceful. Be quiet. Be grateful." The main course arrived. Filet mignon, roasted fingerling potatoes, asparagus with lemon butter. Silverware touched porcelain. Wine moved from glass to glass. Then Richard, warmed by expensive Cabernet and inherited confidence, leaned toward Claire with a smile. "You know, years ago we all assumed you would become Mrs. Whitmore. The family would have avoided so much confusion." A few people laughed. Not loudly. That would have been too honest. They laughed lightly, socially, the way people do when cruelty wears a tuxedo. Claire lowered her gaze, pretending embarrassment. Eleanor did not correct him. Ethan did not correct him. That was the moment. Not the bedroom. Not the white rose. This. Ava looked at her husband across the table, waiting for the smallest sign that he remembered the woman he had promised to honor before God, family, and 500 guests at St. Bartholomew's. He lifted his water glass instead. The silence did not fall. It gathered. Ava placed her napkin on the table with careful hands. The white linen lay beside her plate like a surrender flag She had no intention of waving. "Excuse me," she said. Eleanor's brows rose. "Leaving so soon?" Ava stood, her pearls catching the candlelight. "No. I am simply done participating in a conversation where my marriage is treated like a clerical error." Every face turned toward her. Claire's smile disappeared. Ethan's water glass stopped halfway to the table. Ava looked at Eleanor, then Richard, then finally at her husband. A wife should not have to beg her husband to remember she is in the room. No one moved. No one breathed loudly. Ava stepped away from the table, not rushed, not trembling, not broken. Her heels crossed the polished floor with a rhythm that sounded almost like applause. Behind her, Ethan said her name, but softly, too softly for a man who had just watched his wife be erased in public. Ava did not turn around. Some women leave a room because they have been defeated. Ava Brooks left because she had finally seen the battlefield clearly. The private elevator closed behind Ava with a sound so soft it felt more final than any slammed door could have been. For 3 floors, she was alone with her reflection in the brushed steel walls, her black dress falling perfectly, her grandmother's pearls steady at her throat, her face calm in the way deep water is calm before anyone measures its depth. Then the elevator stopped at the 2nd floor, and Ethan stepped inside. He must have taken the back staircase from the dining room. His breathing was controlled, his jaw tense, his white dinner jacket still immaculate beneath the warm ceiling lights. Even in anger, Ethan Whitmore looked like a man the world had been trained to forgive. Ava did not move. The doors slid shut, sealing them inside the narrow, mirrored silence. For one moment, neither of them spoke. The numbers above the door glowed amber as the elevator descended toward the underground garage. 6, 5, 4. Ethan looked at her reflection instead of her face. That, too, told Ava something. "You embarrassed me in there," he said at last. She almost laughed, but laughter would have given the moment too much warmth. "No, Ethan. Your family embarrassed me. You simply allowed it." His eyes flicked toward hers in the mirror. "My mother was trying to help." Ava turned her head slowly. "By placing your old friend beside you and your wife near the end of the table? It was a seating mistake. Your mother does not make mistakes with silverware, much less people." The elevator continued downward with a quiet mechanical hum. Ethan rubbed one hand along the back of his neck, a gesture she knew too well. He used it before difficult board calls, before firing executives, before explaining why her name had been left out of another interview. "You are reading cruelty into everything because of last night." "Last night was not the beginning," Ava said. "It was a translation." His brow tightened. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means the guest room finally gave language to what I have felt for years." The elevator reached the lobby level, but did not open. Ethan pressed the stop button before Ava could step forward. The sudden stillness settled between them like dust. He turned to face her fully now, his handsome face sharpened by frustration. "Ava, listen to me." Claire was upset. "My mother was being my mother." Richard made a tasteless joke. "That is all. You are turning a few uncomfortable moments into an indictment of our entire marriage." Ava looked at the red emergency light glowing beside his hand. "Do not trap me in a conversation and then tell me I am dramatic." His expression changed, not into remorse, but into something close to annoyance at being corrected. "I am trying to fix this." "No, you are trying to make it quiet." That landed. She saw it in the small tightening around his mouth. Outside the elevator doors, somewhere beyond the steel, the household staff would be pretending not to notice that the billionaire and his wife had disappeared after dinner. Eleanor would be smoothing the table back into order. Claire would be looking wounded in the candlelight. The Whitmore family knew how to absorb scandal like expensive carpet absorbed spilled wine. Quickly, discreetly, with someone else doing the cleaning. Ethan lowered his voice. "You know what my world requires." Ava stared at him. There it was again. His world. The phrase he used whenever he wanted her to accept something smaller than respect. "Your world requires a wife who can stand beside you, but not be seen too clearly. It requires me to smile when I am insulted, stay graceful when I am dismissed, and call it love when you choose silence over me. That is not fair. Neither was building the first hotel around my ideas and letting every magazine call you a genius." His face went still. The elevator felt colder. "Where is this coming from?" "From the woman who drew your lobby on her apartment floor while you slept. From the woman who chose the walnut panels, the amber lighting, the rooftop garden, the library lounge your investors still photograph. From the woman who watched you accept awards for warmth you did not know how to create until I taught you. Ethan looked away first. It was small, but Ava saw it. For the first time that evening, the truth had entered the elevator and taken up space. I never meant to erase you, he said, quieter now. Ava's voice softened, not from weakness, but from grief disciplined into language. Intentions do not give back what silence takes. The amber number above the doors remained frozen. Ava reached past him and pressed the stop button again. The elevator resumed its descent. Neither of them touched. Neither of them apologized. When the doors opened to the underground garage, cold air rolled in, carrying the smell of rain, concrete, and waiting engines. Through ambition, grief, sleepless nights, and borrowed courage. Then let Claire carry it. His face changed. That is not what I meant. It is exactly what you meant. You just did not expect me to hear it clearly. Rain whispered beyond the garage entrance. Somewhere above them, a dinner table waited for its wife to return and behave. Ava opened the car door herself. Before stepping inside, she removed her pearls and placed them carefully into her clutch, as if preserving the last sacred thing she had brought into that house. Ethan stood motionless under the fluorescent garage lights, no longer looking untouchable, only uncertain. Ava looked at him once more. Tonight, you told me she understands your world better than I do. Tomorrow, I will begin remembering mine. Then she got into the car, closed the door gently, and watched through the tinted window as Ethan remained standing in the garage, a billionaire surrounded by everything he owned, and for the first time, looking like a man who had misplaced something money could not replace. At 2:17 in the morning, Ava Brooks stood barefoot in the kitchen of the Manhattan penthouse and called the only woman in New York who had never mistaken silence for weakness. The city beyond the windows looked washed clean by rain, all silver streets and red taillights moving below like distant warning signs. Behind Ava, the apartment was still. Ethan had not come home with her after the dinner. He had stayed in Greenwich, probably to soothe his mother, protect Claire, and explain Ava's dignity as if it were a public relations problem. That gave her time. Time, Ava had learned, was the one gift men gave women when they underestimated them. She had changed out of the black dress and into a cream sweater and dark slacks. Her makeup was gone. Her curls were pinned loosely at the back of her neck. On the marble island sat three things: her wedding ring, her laptop, and a yellow legal pad filled with neat handwriting. Dates, events, interviews where her work disappeared into Ethan's name, charity dinners where she had been introduced without a profession, design meetings she had attended unofficially because Ethan said. The board would understand later. Later had become 3 years. Later had become a white rose on her pillow. Simone Carter answered on the fourth ring, her voice low but alert. Ava. Ava looked at the ring on the counter. It seemed smaller outside her hand. I am sorry to call so late. You never call late unless it matters. Simone had been Ava's friend since Chicago, long before Ethan, long before penthouses and society pages. She was now one of the sharpest divorce attorneys in Manhattan, with an office overlooking Bryant Park and a reputation for turning quiet women into very expensive lessons. Are you safe? Ava closed her eyes for half a second. The question touched something tender, but she did not let it break her voice. Yes, I am safe. Then tell me what happened. Ava did. Not all of it. Not every small humiliation. Some pain takes years to earn its full vocabulary. But she told Simone about the guest room, the white rose, the dinner, the elevator, Ethan's words about Claire understanding his world. Simone did not interrupt. She only listened, and the silence on the line became a room Ava could stand in. When Ava finished, the clock on the microwave read 2:29. The penthouse lights reflected in the windows, doubling the empty chairs, the untouched anniversary dishes still covered in silver domes, the 2 wine glasses from the night before. A life stage for love, abandoned by truth. What do you want? Simone asked. Not what are you feeling? Not are you sure? What do you want? That was why Ava had called her. Ava placed one hand flat on the cool marble. I do not want revenge. The words surprised her with how steady they sounded. I want my name back. Simone exhaled softly. Not pity. Recognition. Then we start with the marriage. Yes. Prenup? Ethan's attorneys drafted one. I signed it 2 weeks before the wedding. Separate assets. Confidentiality. No claim to Whitmore global equity. Of course they did. But there is more. Ava opened her laptop and clicked into a folder she had not touched in nearly a year. Scanned drawings filled the screen. The original lobby concepts. Rooftop garden plans. Lighting studies. Material. Palettes. Every file carried her initials in the metadata. AB time-stamped before the hotel renovation was announced. Before the interviews. Before Ethan became a visionary to people who never saw the woman sketching beside him at 2 in the morning. I have the first designs, Ava said. For the flagship renovation. The line went very quiet. Ava. I never signed them over. Did Whitmore Global use them? Ava looked toward the dark hallway leading to the master bedroom. The room she would never again enter as a wife. They built an empire on them. This time Simone's silence sharpened. Do not delete anything. Do not move files around. Do not warn Ethan. Send me copies through the secure link I am about to text you. In the morning, I will pull the business filings, press materials, design credits, and any public awards tied to that property. Ava nodded, even though Simone could not see her. Her body felt strangely light, not joyful, not relieved, but clear. And the divorce? I will prepare the petition before noon. We can file quietly. No headlines unless they force it. Ava looked again at the wedding ring. Quietly, she repeated. That suited her. Ava had no interest in spectacle. Spectacle was for people who needed witnesses to believe they mattered. She had lived too long inside rooms where she was visible only when convenient. Now paper would speak for her. Documents. Dates. Signatures. Evidence. The kind of truth no dinner table could laugh away. Ava, Simone said, softer now. Once this begins, he will try to turn charm into a negotiation. He will tell you he was confused. He will say you misunderstood. He will offer apologies shaped like contracts. Ava picked up the ring. The diamond flashed once under the pendant light, bright and empty. Then I will read the fine print. Simone gave a low, humorless laugh. There she is. After the call ended, Ava remained in the kitchen while the city moved toward dawn. She uploaded the files one by one. Each document entered the secure folder like a piece of herself returning home. At 3:46, Ethan texted her. We need to talk in the morning. She read it once and placed the phone face down beside the ring. No reply. Some conversations end when a woman stops explaining her pain to the person who caused it. By 4:10, Ava had packed a small suitcase with practical things. 2 suits, 3 sweaters, jeans, running shoes, her grandmother's pearls, the velvet prayer book, and the framed photograph of her parents standing outside their first Brooklyn apartment. She left behind the gowns Ethan's world had admired and the diamonds Eleanor had approved. They belonged to a version of her that had mistaken acceptance for love. Just before sunrise, Ava walked to the dining table and uncovered the anniversary meal. The food had gone cold, the wine untouched, the candles hardened into pale wax. She looked at the beautiful table one last time, then turned off the chandelier. Darkness settled gently over the room. It did not frighten her. For the first time in years, the darkness felt honest. At 5:22, as the sky over Manhattan began to lighten, Ava Brooks placed her wedding ring in the center of the marble island, beside a single folded note written in her own clean hand. It was not long. It did not need to be. You gave my room away. I am taking my life back. Ethan found the ring before he found the note. It was sitting in the center of the marble island beneath the pale morning light, small enough to fit inside his palm and heavy enough to change the temperature of the room. For several seconds, he simply stared at it. The penthouse was too quiet. No coffee brewing. No soft jazz from the kitchen speaker. No sound of Ava moving through the dressing room with the calm rhythm that had once made mornings feel survivable. Only the distant murmur of traffic rising from Madison Avenue and the low hum of the refrigerator filled the space where his marriage used to breathe. He was still wearing the shirt from the night before, the sleeves wrinkled now, his collar open, his face shadowed by a night spent explaining Ava's pain to people who had never cared to understand it. He had expected anger when he returned. A closed bedroom door. A few sharp words. Perhaps tears. Perhaps the kind of argument he could enter, manage, survive, and later smooth over with flowers. A careful apology and a weekend in Napa Valley. He had not expected absence. Absence did not negotiate. Absence did not raise its voice. Absence stood in the kitchen with a diamond ring and made a billionaire feel poor. Ethan picked up the folded note. Ava's handwriting was elegant, clean, impossible to mistake. You gave my room away. I am taking my life back. The sentence entered him slowly, like cold water filling a locked room. He read it again, then a third time, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less final. They did not. His phone buzzed before he could decide whether to call her. Claire. He looked at the name glowing on the screen and, for the first time, felt no comfort in it. The call stopped. A message followed. Is everything all right? Your mother is worried. Ethan placed the phone face down on the counter. The question seemed absurd inside the silence Ava had left behind. Was everything all right? The anniversary dinner sat in the dining room untouched, the silver covers still in place, the candles burned down. Her black clutch was gone. Her grandmother's pearls were gone. The framed photograph of her parents was gone from the hallway console. Small removals. Precise removals. Ava had not fled. She had edited her life. Ethan walked toward the guest room first, driven by a strange and foolish hope that she might have slept there and simply gone for a walk. The bed was made. The closet empty. The room looked exactly as it had before she entered it, which made him feel, irrationally, accused. In the master bedroom, the sheets were white, the pillows aligned, the air faintly scented with linen spray. He noticed the trash bin beside the vanity and saw the white rose resting inside. Something tightened under his ribs. He remembered Claire laughing the first summer they met as teenagers in Newport, remembered his mother calling her suitable, remembered how easy everything had seemed around people who already knew the rules. Then he remembered Ava on the floor of his old apartment, surrounded by blueprints, her hair tied in a scarf, explaining how light could make a lobby feel less like a monument and more like a welcome. He had loved her then with a hunger that surprised him. Or maybe, he thought now, he had loved how she made him feel capable of becoming better than the man he had been raised to be. His phone buzzed again. This time it was his assistant, Margaret. Good morning, Mr. Whitmore. I apologize for the early call, but Simone Carter's office has requested confirmation of legal representation for Mrs. Brooks Whitmore. They mentioned a divorce petition may be filed today. The word divorce did what Ava's absence had not. It made him move. That is not happening, Ethan said, too quickly. She is upset. I will handle it. Margaret paused, professional enough to hide surprise and human enough not to erase it completely. Yes, sir. Should I notify counsel? Ethan looked at the ring in his hand. No, not yet. There is something else. He closed his eyes. What? Their office also requested preservation of records related to the Whitmore Fifth Avenue flagship renovation, including early design concepts, communications, vendor selections, and media credits. The kitchen seemed to tilt without moving. Ethan turned toward the dining room, toward the city beyond the windows, toward the empire that had risen so beautifully after that first hotel reopened. Who requested that? Simone Carter, sir. On behalf of Mrs. Brooks Whitmore. Ava. Not crying. Not pleading. Filing. Remembering. Documenting. Ethan ended the call without saying goodbye and immediately dialed Ava. It went to voicemail. He tried again. Voicemail. On the third call, he heard only the same calm recording of her voice, warm and distant, asking him to leave a message. He did not. What could he say that would not sound smaller than the note she had left behind? At 8:30, Eleanor called. Ethan answered because avoiding his mother had never made her disappear. Darling, Claire said Ava left dinner in a mood. I hope you are not indulging this behavior. He looked at the ring on the counter. She filed for divorce. Silence. Then Eleanor's voice sharpened into ice wrapped in silk. That is ridiculous. She is trying to frighten you. No, Ethan said, and the word surprised him because it was the first honest thing he had said that morning. She is not. Eleanor sighed. Then let the attorneys remind her what she signed. She walked into this family with very little. She should be careful leaving it. For the first time in his life, Ethan heard his mother the way Ava must have heard her for years. Not elegant. Not protective. Cruel. Efficiently cruel. Do not speak about my wife that way, he said. The correction came late. He knew that as soon as he said it. Late words are still words, but they do not always arrive in time to save what silence destroyed. Eleanor inhaled sharply. Your wife seems to have forgotten her place. Ethan looked at the guest room down the hall, at the room he had sent Ava to as if love could be reassigned for convenience. No, he said quietly. I think she finally remembered it. He ended the call and stood alone in the penthouse while Manhattan brightened beyond the glass. For years, he had believed money could restore anything: hotels, reputations, failing buildings, family names. But Ava had left him surrounded by marble, art, crystal, and silence, and none of it knew how to answer the empty space where her dignity had once waited for him to notice. By noon, Ava Brooks was no longer living above Madison Avenue. She was standing in the doorway of her old Brooklyn apartment with one suitcase, one laptop bag, and the strange sensation of meeting a former version of herself who had been waiting patiently in the dust. The apartment was on the fourth floor of a brownstone in Fort Greene, with narrow stairs, uneven hardwood floors, and radiators that clanked like old men clearing their throats. It was smaller than the Whitmore penthouse laundry room, but when Ava stepped inside, she felt her lungs open. The walls were bare except for faint square shadows where her framed sketches used to hang. The windows faced a maple tree, not a skyline. The kitchen had chipped white tile, not imported stone. There was no private elevator, no staff, no chilled wine waiting in a temperature-controlled room. Only quiet. Honest quiet. Ava set her suitcase beside the sofa she had covered with a sheet 3 years ago and walked to the window. Below, a mother pushed a stroller. Past a corner deli, a delivery truck idled near the curb. Someone laughed on the sidewalk with the full, unpolished freedom of people who had never been trained to lower their joy for chandeliers. For the first time since Ethan had asked her to leave her own room, Ava let her shoulders drop. Not collapse. Release. Her phone began ringing before she could unpack. Unknown numbers. Society women pretending concern. Reporters who had somehow learned enough to become hungry. She ignored them all until Simone called. "It has started," Simone said without greeting. Ava looked at the maple leaves moving against the glass. "What has Claire done?" Leaked a version of the story. Simone's voice was crisp, but underneath it Ava heard anger being held by the throat. "Anonymous sources say you left after a family disagreement, that Ethan tried to calm you down, and that you have been emotionally unstable because you struggled to adapt to his lifestyle." Ava closed her eyes. There it was. The oldest costume placed on women who refused to stay grateful. Difficult. Unstable. Angry. And for a black woman, the words carried extra weight, sharpened by centuries of people mistaking dignity for defiance and pain for attitude. "Do they mention the guest room?" Ava asked. "No, the dinner." "No, the white rose." "Of course not." Ava opened her eyes. "Then it is not a story. It is wallpaper." Simone was quiet for a beat. "You do not sound surprised." "I am not." And she was not. Claire Ashford had never needed to raise her voice to be believed. She only had to look wounded in the right room, and the world would hand her a microphone. By mid-afternoon, the gossip columns were dripping with polite poison. Sources close to the Whitmore family described Ava as overwhelmed by the pressures of wealth. One article called her a former designer who never seemed comfortable in high society. Another praised Ethan's restraint during a private marital crisis. A lifestyle blogger with 500,000 followers posted an old photograph of Ava leaving a gala unsmiling and captioned it, "Grace matters, even when things get hard." Ava read that one twice, then placed the phone face down on the windowsill. The room remained still. No ceiling collapsed. No truth died because strangers failed to recognize it. She made tea in a dented kettle she had forgotten she owned, then opened her laptop on the small dining table near the window. Emails from Simone waited in neat order: document requests, timeline drafts, preservation notices, instructions for securing her design files. Ava moved through them with calm precision. She created folders, renamed scans, backed up drawings, collected old text messages from Ethan that said things like, "Your eyes saved this project, and I would be lost without your concepts." Once, reading those words would have warmed her. Now they became evidence. The world outside could call her emotional. Paper would call her accurate. Around 4 o'clock, her mother, Denise Brooks, arrived with grocery bags and no unnecessary questions. Denise was 62, with soft gray curls, careful hands, and the kind of eyes that had seen enough life to know when comfort should arrive quietly. She placed chicken soup, cornbread, oranges, and a bouquet of yellow tulips on the kitchen counter. Then she looked at Ava, not at her clothes, not at the missing ring. At her. "Baby," Denise said, "do you want me to speak, Or do you want me to sit? Ava's mouth trembled once. Only once. Sit. So Denise sat. They ate soup from mismatched bowls while sirens passed faintly in the distance, and evening turned the apartment gold. Denise did not ask why Ava had not fought harder for the marriage. She did not ask whether Ethan could change. She did not say forgiveness should mean returning to a place that made her smaller. She only reached across the table and covered Ava's hand with her own. Your grandmother used to say a woman can lose a house and still keep her home if she does not abandon herself. Ava looked toward the suitcase by the door, the laptop glowing on the table, the legal folders lining up like bricks for a foundation. I think I abandoned myself slowly. Denise squeezed her hand. Then come back slowly. We have time. That night, Ava unpacked only what mattered. Her parents' photograph went on the windowsill. Her grandmother's prayer book went beside the bed. The pearls went into a small ceramic dish. She hung her suits in the closet and left the gowns folded in the suitcase, untouched. At 10:30, Ethan called again. Ava watched his name light the screen until it faded. A message followed. Please do not let them turn this ugly. Ava read it once and smiled sadly. Men who benefit from silence often call truth ugly when it finally learns to speak. She did not respond. Instead, she opened a blank document and typed 2 words at the top, Brooke's house. The name looked simple. Clean. Hers. Outside, Brooklyn settled into night, alive with car horns, distant music, and the steady pulse of ordinary people building ordinary courage. Ava sat at her small table until after midnight, sketching the first lines of a future no one had assigned her. She was not healed. Not yet. But healing had entered the room, taken off its coat, and decided to stay. The next morning, Ava found the forgotten blueprint in a cardboard tube beneath her old drafting table, tucked behind a box of fabric samples, paint decks, and the life she had packed away when she became Mrs. Whitmore. The tube was dented at one end, sealed with brittle masking tape, her name written across it in black marker. Ava Brooks, Fifth Avenue Concept, Original Set. For a moment, she only stared at it. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator clicking near the window and the soft rush of traffic outside. Brooklyn morning light spilled across the floor in pale gold squares, touching the dust on the drafting table, the edge of her laptop, the half-finished cup of coffee beside her hand. She had opened the closet looking for old tax documents. Instead, the past had rolled out at her feet, patient and intact. Ava carried the tube to the dining table and peeled back the tape with slow fingers. The paper inside smelled faintly of graphite, vellum, and time. When she unrolled the first sheet, her breath caught in a place too deep for tears. There it was, the original lobby plan for the Whitmore Fifth Avenue flagship. Not the polished version printed in magazines. Not the corporate file with Ethan's name stamped in the corner. Hers. The brass archway sketched in soft pencil. The walnut reception wall with notes about warmth and visual grounding. The lighting path marked by hand. The quiet library lounge tucked beside the east windows so afternoon sun would fall across the leather chairs at precisely the right hour. She remembered drawing that line at 2:30 in the morning while Ethan slept on her sofa, his tie loosened, his shoes still on, exhausted from another investor meeting that had gone badly. Back then, the hotel was not an empire. It was a problem. A cold lobby full of echo, marble, and arrogance. Ava had walked through it once and understood immediately why guests did not return. There was no welcome in it. Only wealth announcing itself. She had told Ethan that luxury without warmth was just a beautiful locked door. He had laughed softly, kissed her temple, and said, "Then open it for me." So she had. She had opened everything. Ava spread the sheets across the table one by one, weighting the corners with coffee mugs and books. Each page carried her handwriting in the margins. Lower sconces to human height. Replace white stone with warmer veining. Create pause before check-in. Add living greenery near elevator bank. Make silence feel intentional, not empty. These were not decorations. They were decisions. They were the architecture of feeling. And Ethan had built his rebirth from them. Her phone rang just after 9. "Simone, tell me you are sitting down," Simone said. Ava looked at the blueprints covering the table. "I am standing in evidence." Even better. I pulled the public records. The initial renovation press package lists Whitmore Global Creative Development as the concept originator. No individual designer credited. But I also found 3 early vendor emails where Ethan forwarded your drawings directly to contractors. He wrote, and I quote, Ava's concept solves the lobby issue. Build from this direction. Ava closed her eyes. The sentence entered her like vindication wrapped in grief. He knew. Yes, Simone said. And there is more. The award submission for the Hospitality Design Prize included images from your original concept set. The final submission removed your initials. Ava looked down at the corner of the first sheet, where AB appeared in small, careful letters. She had always signed lightly, never imagining she would one day need proof that her own hand had existed. Can we use it? We can use all of it. Not as noise. As leverage. Possibly as an intellectual property claim, depending on the agreements and timeline. At minimum, it changes the divorce conversation. At maximum, it opens a very uncomfortable door for Whitmore Global. A door. Ava almost smiled. Ethan had spent years building hotels. Now one of her doors was opening under him. I do not want this to become a circus, Ava said. It does not have to. We file quietly. We request preservation. We prepare for discovery. If his side behaves, it stays controlled. If they smear you again, we let documents correct the room. Ava ran her fingertips over a pencil note near the library lounge. Emotional memory point. She had written that before she knew her own marriage would become one. Claire is already feeding the press. I know, which is why accuracy matters more than speed. Let them talk in adjectives. We will answer in dates. After the call, Ava worked for 6 straight hours. She scanned every sheet at high resolution. She photographed the handwritten notes. She pulled old emails from archived accounts and found more than she expected. Ethan asking for her opinion on suite layouts. Ethan praising her rooftop garden concept. Ethan sending her a late-night message that read, "The board loved the warmth. They think I finally understand hospitality." Ava stared at that line for a long time. They think I finally understand. Not we. Not you help me see. I. The smallest word. The largest theft. By late afternoon, Denise returned with more groceries and found the apartment transformed into a war room of quiet elegance. Blueprints lined the floor. Sticky notes marked dates. The tulips from yesterday stood in a glass jar near the window, yellow and unapologetic. Denise stepped carefully around the drawings, then looked at her daughter with pride softened by sorrow. This was all yours. Ava nodded. Before it was his. Denise bent to study the lobby sketch. Then we better make sure the truth has a good frame. That evening, Ava took the subway to Manhattan for the first time in years. No driver. No tinted windows. Just a Metro card from the back of an old wallet and a seat near the door on the C train. She carried the blueprint scans in a leather tote against her chest. Around her, people read books, listened to music, held grocery bags, closed their eyes after long shifts. No one knew a billionaire's wife sat among them. That comforted her. At Simone's office near Bryant Park, the conference room lights glowed against the darkening city. Simone reviewed the documents without dramatic reaction, but Ava saw the satisfaction in her eyes. This, Simone said, tapping the blueprint set, is not just divorce material. This is the spine of the story they tried to remove you from. Ava looked through the glass wall toward Midtown, where towers glittered like promises and warnings. Somewhere not far away, Ethan was probably in a boardroom built from confidence, unaware that the woman he had sent away had returned with paper strong enough to shake marble. Ava placed her hand over the first drawing. Then let us put my name back where it belongs.